The other factor that we want to talk on, the number 8 factor, is whether there was a reasonable belief of imminent threat or whether this shooting was necessary as a last resort, whether there was a reasonable belief of an imminent threat or whether this was necessary as a last resort. Pretty important factor there, because this is what a lot of the police manuals use. They use this type of language. You can use deadly force if there's a reasonable belief of an imminent threat. So this is what we call the reasonableness standard in law. It basically is intending to be an objective standard. Would a reasonable person in that officer's position pull their firearm and shoot it into somebody's back 7 times? That's the question. You can answer that however you want. I'm going to answer this as a hard no. There was no belief of imminent threat, or there was no reasonable belief of imminent threat, unless, as that door was opened, that cop saw him pulling for another weapon. If that door is open and we see a weapon in there, then we're going to go ahead and say that that was an imminent threat. But based on what we see right now, I didn't see any immediacy. I didn't see any weapons on him. I didn't see anything. There's a potential that there's a weapon in the vehicle. That's absolutely true. There's a potential that it's not. So to argue over potentials is not really productive. There's a lot of people doing that right now. A lot of people jump into this and say, well, he could have had anything. He could have had, a gun, a shotgun, a machine gun, a machete. He could have had knives in there. Doesn't really matter, because you can play the speculation game all day long. Doesn't really go into the analysis very well. Now, if we come back and we say, yeah, 100% there was a gun in the vehicle and it was in his passenger or his driver's side compartment on the door or in the glove box or wherever it was, that's a different scenario. If the cop saw it, the cop has to see that there is an imminent threat and that the shooting is necessary as a last resort. So at this point in time, we just don't have the evidence. So we're making this analysis and we're doing this assessment based on this alone, just this snapshot in time. The facts can change, but for the time being, we are going to give this one to Mr. Jacob Blake, because it is not evident from what we've seen in the video that there was an imminent threat. Imminent means that it's coming. You know it's coming. It's imminent. It's happening. There is an earthquake that's imminent. Evacuate. There's a fire in California. It's imminent. You have to leave now. It's not could be. It's not potential. It's not maybe. It's not could have. It's not might have. It's imminent. And we just didn't see that in this case. Now, that actually language, I think that language is actually mirrored in the Kenosha actual policy manual. Their website is down, but I got a screenshot of it from Twitter, and it looks like that's the exact language that they use. So was this necessary as a last resort? Was it necessary to shoot him in the back that many times? In my opinion, no. That's why the point, that factor weighs in favor of Mr. Blake. The 9th factor is whether or not the police have any transparency, whether they have their policies publicly available, or whether or not they're using body cameras, things of that nature. What are the police saying? What are they doing? And what are the politicians doing? And so on this one, we're going to split the middle on this. Now, I did some research, some reading, and my understanding is that the Kenosha Police Department does not have body cameras for their police officers. It's 2020. There are cameras literally everywhere. We have these everywhere. And the police department still doesn't have them. So that point goes against them. I'm going to give that to the defense. We should know, every single cop in this country should have body cameras on by now. It's insane that they do not. This is a funding, this is a union problem. This is a cops not wanting to be held accountable problem. This is a prosecutor and resource problem. It's a huge problem that needs to be addressed. This case would be a lot more clear if these cops were wearing body cameras. My understanding is that they were not. So they don't get the benefit of the doubt if they're not willing to even put a simple body camera that many, many other huge police entities around this country have been using for a number of years. So they need to own that. They have failed by not having body cameras, and so they lose a point on that. On the flip side, they do get a point because their policies, their use of force policies are online. I cannot access them right now because the website is being bombarded by everything, but I did see some screenshots of it. I did read through them, and the fact that they're online and that they're publicly available, and it sounds like the public statements from the police department and from the mayor at this point in time have indicated that they are going to be very aggressive with fast tracking this investigation. As we are seeing on the news, there are protests and riots, and they're burning things down all across the country. So ideally, they comply with what they said they're going to do. Their word rings true, and they expedite the investigation on this case. So when we go back and we do our analysis, we're going to weigh that factor. We're going to give 1 point to each. We're going to give 1 to the police for having transparent policies and placing them online, and for promising to expedite this investigatory process. We're going to give 1 point to the defense because the police blew it by not having body cameras on so that we could actually see the footage. I'm fully inclined to think that these cops are going to write in their report that this was an imminent threat because of X, Y, and Z. There may be a gun in there. There may be a knife in there. There may be something else in there that they're going to try to sink their teeth into, but we're going to watch that. And as I said, if this requires an update, we'll be sure to make an update.